now with more. Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, along with Fox News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett. He has a new book coming out, Trial of the Century. Good to see you both. Now, it's sort of like the band is back together because, you know, the four of us, and then many other people as well, we were tied to the hip and unpeeling every layer of the onion and getting the Russia hoax story correct.
Right.
Now, my question is, first and foremost, about Hunter Biden. Do you believe that finally this is getting accelerated because we now know an IRS whistleblower is charging that Merrick Garland and the DOJ have been covering for Hunter and Joe Biden?
Yes, and I think it's important that we understand that for someone to come forward from the government, it takes a lot of courage. They could lose everything. So they obviously believe that this is important enough that they're willing to give up their job. They're going to try to seek cover from Congress, but it doesn't always work that way for them. So they're coming forward. They're going to bring the truth forward. But, Sean, this is about the American people more than anything else. And I think that's why you're seeing whistleblowers come forward. This is about the system of justice and Merrick Garland and what's been happening inside the DOJ. If we lose the Department of Justice, we lose everything. We lose the foundation that our nation is based on.
Let me put emphasis on this point. If we don't have equal justice and application of our laws, you might as well take that document called the U.S. Constitution and shred it because it is then meaningless.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what's important here are those special activity reports, and I'm sure Gregg's going to go into detail. John did a phenomenal job of explaining how there is a two-tiered justice system and what Congress needs to do. But I think the most important thing right now is to be able to say, well, wait a minute, we're not going to accept lower charges, these misdemeanors on Hunter Biden, because guess what? It was Hunter Biden who exposed not only our nation to a major national security threat. His father has been in government his entire life. So we know that the Chinese, we know that the Russians, we know that the Ukrainians have been watching him consistently. He's an addict. It's unfortunate, but he became a target of intelligence operatives from other nations. And what I want to know is not just the information that they possibly had access to in recent times, but how long has this been going on and how much of our national security has been exposed because of Hunter Biden and because of the Biden family?
Let's look at this from the legal side, Gregg Jarrett. There are a lot of questions here. Number one, did Merrick Garland cover for the Biden family? Also, will there be an investigation into Tony Blinken, who organized the 51 intel agents, former intel officials, to go out and say something they couldn't possibly know to be true about the laptop of Hunter Biden? So there's a cover-up there. And then why did the FBI go to big tech in the months leading up to the 2020 election and warn them that they might be a subject to misinformation campaigns, and it may be about Joe and Hunter Biden? And then, of course, that story broke in the New York Post, and it got censored. The American people were not told the truth, and it was a high-level effort by Biden's top people to do it. And was there a quid pro quo with Tony Blinken?
Oh, I think yes to all of the above. The fix is in. It is obstruction of justice by the Department of Justice. How else do you explain an absurd 5-year-long criminal investigation in the face of a plethora of incriminating evidence on the laptop alone, not to mention many of Hunter Biden's partners who can implicate as well the president of the United States?
First we thought it was 3. Last week it was 9. Now we're up to over a dozen family members that benefited financially, according to James Comer, right?
And Merrick Garland will not recuse himself despite federal regulations that demand he do it, which tells me, together with the many whistleblowers, that the fix is in. Look, regardless of whether Hunter Biden gets a sweetheart deal, you said something incredibly important in your opening monologue. You used the impeachment word. Our founding fathers were deeply worried about a future president's schemes and fecklessness with a foreign power that he would sell out the United States and its national security.
Does everybody here agree in our crowd? Everyone agree? That's a great point.
They were so worried about it that they created the impeachment clause in the Constitution. Treason, bribery, high crimes and misdemeanors. That is a fitting description for Joe Biden. And Washington talked about it in his farewell address. Hamilton, Jefferson, Adams, they were all deeply worried about a future Joe Biden.
So Jim Comer, in my last interview with him, talked about the SARS reports.
Right.
He talked about, all the countries that the Biden family syndicate did business with. We need an answer to these questions. How much money in business did they do with the communist Chinese, for example?
31 million.
Okay.
Minimum.
How much did they do with Russia? How much did they do with Ukraine? Why did Joe leverage $1 billion taxpayer dollars to fire a Ukrainian prosecutor?
The latter is a classic case of a violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is a felony. As to Russia, it's been estimated about $40 million. Ukraine, we know, $11 million.
What about the $1.5 billion?
You got
deal
Oman, you got Kazakhstan, you got
That's right.
Romania. They all have one common denominator, and that is Joe Biden, as vice president, was put in charge by Barack Obama of those very countries.
Exactly.
Does it come down to
Compromised
this
our
question?
national security, Sean. It's about the national security of the
Is
United
it
States.
possible that the president of our country is compromised and they have material on him and therefore they have control over Joe Biden?
Absolutely. And everything they tried to accuse President Trump of is what they were doing. And we need to get to the bottom.
All right. Sarah Carter, Gregg Jarrett, love having you. Great to see you in the studio. Thank you.